Before we get going into your Hockey IQ podcast episode, I want to thank our sponsor, Rapid Shot. Rapid Shot is the smart shooting lane. It's like a batting cage for hockey players. Very cool. Tracks your shot in three ways: accuracy, shot speed, and reaction time. Easy to use. Actually, I used it when I played and was growing up. Very easy. Simply scan your phone in, select your settings, and start shooting. You can see your stats on the app and online. You can check them out at rapidshot.com. Great small business. I actually grew up with one of the owner's sons and have played with all the family members by now, just in local pickups here in Ohio. Very cool local business. Awesome product. I love it. I know quite a few NHLers have them in their homes. A lot of D1 programs have it at their rinks. So you have to check this out. Rapidshot.com. Check it out. Rapid Shot, thank you so much for sponsoring our podcast. On the Hockey IQ podcast today, we bring on Jacob Newton, professional hockey player. I would normally say ex, but it seems like you're training to become a hockey player once again in the new exciting 3-on-3 league.
Yeah. I got a pretty cool call. I don't know. I'd say about 2 months ago from the owner of this new 3-on-3 league that's starting up in June. It's called 3 Ice. It's supposed to be a pretty big deal. This will be the first year that it's kind of, the inaugural season. And each team, there's 6 teams in the league. Each team will have a coach, and each of the coaches are in the Hall of Fame. ESPN's picked it up. TSN's picked it up. It won't be on ESPN. It'll be on through their network. So I believe CBS Sports. But yeah, every weekend from June 18th all the way to August 20th, traveling to a different city in North America, playing some hockey. And the more you win, the more you make. And for me, it just gives me the opportunity to play in front of my kids again. The last 3 years of my career, I was over in Europe and my kids weren't with me. And so I kind of always used that as motivation to try my best to get back to North America to play, whether it be the NHL or the American League. But my kids are my biggest motivation and inspiration. So if I get the opportunity to play in front of them again, I'm certainly going to try and take that for sure.
It's amazing what technology has with how, you want to do it in person, but at least we can start to see people across the nation on TV. Like, I know it's a big draw for Ohio State here in Columbus. Like, you're going to be seen by your parents, even if they can't make the game. Like, it's pretty cool. So I'm excited for you on that. And what was it like playing overseas compared to North America? And it's got to be interesting. I believe there's quotas on how many imports you can have. So, there's expectations that probably come with that.
Yeah. Every league's got a different, set of those protocols or rules, I guess you would say, in terms of how many import players can be on the roster, how many import players can dress every night. But I was always fortunate that I never really ran into any situations like that. One time I was playing in Germany and there was an import rule there where only 4 imports could dress. Unfortunately for myself, I was always one of the 4 that was playing, so I didn't have to ever worry about sitting out on a night like that. But honestly, I spent 7 years over in Europe, and I feel a lot more European now than I do American, and I'm half Canadian as well. But it was great. I think my first year, just that culture shock. I wasn't really necessarily prepared to go over there. It was during the shortened season, 2012-13. And was set to be going to camp with San Jose. And then obviously the lockout kind of happened. And then my agent said, would you, be interested in going over to Europe? And at that time, I didn't have any kids. I was married. I asked my then wife what she thought. She said, sure. And then next thing you know, we're going to Italy. And I'll never forget, we were connecting in Frankfurt, Germany. My first time ever being over to Europe. And we're looking up in the terminal. We're looking up to the screens to see where our connecting flight is. Neither one of us are saying a word, but we're both thinking the same thing, like, wow, we really did this. Here we are. And it's not a trip. We're here for the next 8-9 months, So, it's one thing to go and visit the cities. And once that aura kind of around the new city kind of wears off, then you're just there to day-to-day life and going to the grocery store and practices and sleeping and whatever the case is. But no, I certainly did enjoy my time over there and got to live in 6 different countries and go to, 10 in total. And if I could, I would be living in Finland full time. My son was born there, and it's a country that I've got a lot of support in, and I love that country. But that's not my life. Here I am in Cleveland, Ohio. So
Finland. So what is it about Finland that really drew you into it? So we won't talk negative because we're very positive around here. But what's so great about Finland? I know we have quite a few listeners that tune in from Finland. So give us some love on the white and blue.
Yeah, I would say, first off, it's a hockey country. It's number one sport in the country, so that was always nice. A lot of support within the communities there for hockey. I would say, how well they take care of nature, like they preserve the nature over there, and I'm a big fan of getting out and spending as much time as I can. It's actually interesting when I think about it. I grew up in the desert of California and resisted the heat. It took me living in Finland to love the heat because of their sauna culture. So I would, getting in the sauna, sweating like crazy, and then jumping in the frozen lake. So that's another thing that I really enjoy about that country. And then just the people. They're a little bit more reserved, I guess you would say. But as soon as you kind of crack in, you get into them, they're incredible. They're joking, laughing, having a good time, and they're always willing to share. But I remember it's a lot different here in America. Like, you're passing somebody walking down the street and you say, hey, how's it going? That's more of just a hi. That's not like you really want to know how they're doing. They're going to pass you by, you're going to pass them by, you go on with your day. But there in Finland, if you ask that to somebody, they fully prepare that you're wanting to know. And so I remember asking one of my teammates my first year over there, hey buddy, how's it going? He goes, well, do you really want to know? Grab a chair. And I said, well, shoot, I asked you, buddy. So here we go. But no, like I said, I've got a lot of support in that country. I really kind of put myself out there in terms of mental health and got a lot of feedback, a lot of positive feedback. Got a couple different nicknames over there, either Mr. Sunshine or Happy Jake. And they were some of the best years of my career. And then, like I had shared, my son was born over there. So at some point, I'm going to get him back to his hometown in Vasa, Finland.
Yeah, Finland's got a lot of great things going for it. And Happy Jake, that's one heck of a nickname. Not quite like, Jake Cleveland or something like that, where maybe I shouldn't sit down at a poker table with you. I think I prefer your nickname.
Yeah, that's it comes from that would have been my second year over there in Finland. I was playing in Kouvola for a team called Koko, Kookoo, and I was always the first one to show up. I was always the DJ. The boys would show up. I'm smiling, playing positive, happy, dancing music, and just kind of something that kind of stuck with me. The coach started calling me that, and then the boys kind of just, I guess, picked up on that nickname as well. And it's not something that I'm going to be mad about. And no, don't call me Happy. No, doesn't make sense. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's dig into this. I mean, people can Google and get the whole backstory for you, but I'd love to hear it in your own words. Kind of how you came full circle, maybe a little bit, and became full-time Happy Jake, and your entire journey, because it's a story that should be told and people should understand, and understand how people can evolve, how people go down different rabbit holes in different ways to live, and the reason you chose to be the Happy Jake that you are today.
Yeah, for sure. So I think we're going there, but yeah. So from the ages of 5, 6, and 7, again, like I said, I'm not afraid of sharing this stuff. From the ages of 5, 6, and 7, I was sexually abused by my adopted cousin. And after that, I didn't receive any type of help for 18 years. And then it came to my first season. I had just signed my 3-year contract with Anaheim. I'm in my first season in the American League. My then wife was going to therapy herself, asked if I would like to join her. I said, sure, why not? And then shortly, after the second, third, fourth session, the conversation started turning to me and kind of my past and my story and my family dynamics. And that's when, kind of that stuff started coming out. So I really started to kind of dive deep into my childhood and why I experienced the things that I did, why I made the decisions that I made. And then my second year, I had been traded from Anaheim to Colorado. And then at that time, Colorado was affiliated with the Lake Erie Monsters, now known as the Cleveland Monsters, which is what ultimately obviously led me here. And things were going great until they weren't. And then I was sent down to an even lower league in Allen, Texas. where I had played junior hockey and I knew a lot of people there. And so my personal life was not that great. My career was spiraling out of control. At that time, I had no mental tools, really no mental skills to be in control of my emotions and not allowing my past to dictate my present and therefore my future. And I made the unfortunate decision then to step out, cheat on my wife, and she found out. Thankfully, she found out. And from there, I had a decision to make. Do I want to continue going down the path of destruction? And who knows where that would have led me, or go down the path of healing? And that's when I got back in touch with my therapist. Her and I then began going to couples therapy again. So I was going, 2-3 times a week for about 2 years, very intensive, lots of crying, lots of digging, lots of, layers, the peeling of each layer. So I did talk therapy very intensely for 3 years. And honestly, it wasn't enough for me still. My mind was still in control, my likes, my dislikes, my preferences in life. And then it took actually for my wife deciding she didn't want to be with me any longer for me to turn within. So I had 3 catastrophic events, I guess you could say, in my life. The sexual abuse. At the age of 7, I didn't know that I needed help. I didn't know how to process things. It was just, I didn't receive the help, swipe everything under the rug. Right now, me cheating on my wife is the second catastrophic event. I realized in that decision that the decisions I'm making are having an immediate impact on those closest around me, not just her, but my family as well. And then her decision to not want to be with me any longer made me realize that I didn't want any external event, person, or situation to make me feel internally what her one decision did. So I came across a book called The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer. And that book has forever changed the relationship I have with my mind and then therefore my life. And so, yeah, it's been almost 6 years now that I've been divorced or separated, and just understanding that it's all energy. And a situation happens outside yourself. A person says something or a situation, and it causes an internal energy shift. So I'm a lot better at working with that energy, managing that energy, breathing through it. I've got a lot of mental skills, a lot of mental tools, different perspectives now, and understanding that I can try my best to rearrange the outside world, but in the end, it's an internal game that I need to continue working on, that self-love, working from the heart, and going from there. So I know that was a long one there, but it's been a long journey, and it's one that I'm forever grateful for. And there literally isn't a thing that I would change in terms of the abuse, in terms of me cheating, in terms of her divorcing me. It was all for a reason, and it's led me to this very moment here with you today.
And we get happy, Jake.
Yeah. I think that answered the question. Who knows?
Yeah, absolutely. Because mental health, it comes in many different forms, but just like getting right mentally is extremely tough. And I feel like it's a battle that we all fight. And some of us are more successful than others, and some have better tools and all of that. You've gotten into mental coaching as well. So I'm just curious, for people who have maybe faced abuse or struggle with their mental health, or just a situation that presents itself and they don't have those tools in the toolbox, maybe what are some common ways to help with that? Maybe what are some common things you see out there that people face? And then what are maybe some strategies that people can hopefully take away from our conversation, and help make their lives better as well?
Yeah, well, one thing we all have in common, every single person on this planet, is that we all have a mind, and we all have essentially it's just a thought creating machine. But if you can understand that you can change the thoughts, you can stop the thoughts, and therefore you can produce new ones, that has certainly helped me out a lot. I get into the train of negative thinking, and then my body, kind of suffers from the feelings. The body's always listening to what the mind's saying, which is why we randomly sometimes start feeling sad or angry or happy, right? It doesn't always have to be a negative thing, And so I really started to understand that the mind, again, it's just a thought creating machine. It's the thought creating machine. What can I do to kind of snap me out of that neurosis and bring me into the present moment? So a lot of breathing, do a lot of breath work every single day, and it kind of empties the mind. And when it's empty, then I can choose then consciously what type of thoughts I want to put in there. And if the more I'm feeding my mind positivity, the more I'm going to feel positive in my body. And then the experiences that I find myself in on a day-to-day basis are going to be a lot more positive. And they're going to match kind of what's going on in my mind, one thing for myself, I think about my willingness to share that story that I just did and how often I've done it. I think a lot of people feel shame around, the abuse that they experienced, but in the end, it wasn't something that I did to somebody. It was something that was done to me. So through that, I have no shame in speaking about it. The person that did to me, I hope he's healed. Again, it's my cousin. I don't know where he's at in his life. From what I've heard, he was doing well. He's not doing so well now. I would love to see him, give him a hug. And I believe that people that are in pain, typically we put that pain onto other people, so it's not like he was all happy and happy John. He was sad, depressed, sexually abused himself. And he probably viewed it as normal behavior, And so no, there's no ill will, no animosity towards him. I hope him love and healing. Again, sometimes I kind of go all over the place in terms of when I'm speaking, but like I said, the breath. I think about anxiety, people suffering from anxiety and depression, nervous feelings, nerves, and I think those are all very surface level. You'll find very quickly that you're not breathing properly. You're breathing very shallow. And the moment you can start taking your breath deeper into your belly, breathing through your nose and out your nose. For 4 seconds in, hold for a couple seconds, 4 seconds out, hold for a couple seconds again. You get into a deeper level of feeling. You kind of get out of your mind, you get into your body. And through that, again, it brings you into the present moment, and you're no longer attaching to all of those negative thoughts, which then again lead to that negative feeling.
That was amazing. And so many elements I'd love to dig into. Maybe I'll start with the breathing, because that's something I didn't really realize as a player. Like I felt like I was very high agency and control as a player, but now as a coach, you realize there's a lot less control. And then I catch myself on the bench and I'm like tensing up, and my breaths are really shallow, and you're cold, so you're like slightly shuddered, right? And it's terrible. And that has been something that's helped me on the bench, just like relax, take those deep breaths, really get into that stomach. And that's what helps me stay what I call mentally tough, which I think is just like the ability to make the next most important decision, or what you need to, deal with next. So I think that is absolutely critical. Curious, because it sounds like you like to get into nature, you enjoy breathing. So I'm assuming that's going to lead into meditation. Are there certain breathing exercises you really like, stuff you use as a player, things that you're encouraging others to explore?
Yeah. So when I was a player, I would say the last probably 2 years, 3 years of my career is when I started to meditate. I started to visualize and manifest. And it's when I started to have more success on the ice. I had a lot more patience and poise with the puck. But I remember in between shifts, really just trying to tap into focusing on my breathing, especially if I had just made a mistake. There's nothing I can do about that mistake anymore, clearly. So I would tap into just, again, focusing on my breath, breathing through my nostrils, out my nostrils. And every time you do that, it releases the gas called nitric oxide, which is expanding your blood vessels, which is bringing more oxygen to your blood and then therefore your muscles. And it's helping to speed up your recovery. And it's also helping to, when you do the belly breaths, you bypass the lungs. You're also giving the heart time to do what it wants to do. And we want to lower the heart rate in between shifts as well. I do a lot of meditation, pretty much daily. Some days I'm not perfect, I'm tired. I don't want to sit there and sometimes fall back asleep. But I'm kind of losing my train of thought here, but I'm out in nature a lot, trying to connect. I think that's like the source, so to speak. We are one with nature, the trees, the plants, the animals, everything. And I've noticed for myself and for anybody listening, if you're ever feeling any type of mental tension, I know for myself, I get out into nature within 20 minutes, 30 minutes, all of that tension is just kind of gone. And if you've got tension in your mind, typically it's leading to tension in your body. And so you can imagine, being in the locker room, getting ready for a game, and you're freaking ruminating over all these negative thoughts. And then you're feeling anxious, you're feeling nervous for the game. The moment you can kind of get out of that and get into your breath, everything's going to calm down. And I believe that's going to lead to a lot more optimal on ice performance. And the truth is that goes for any sport. It's not just hockey. There's, players in all other sports that experience the same things that we do as hockey players in terms of the nerves and the anxiety when you get the puck on your stick or the ball is being thrown to you, you're running down the field. Oh, am I going to catch this? It's all the same. In the end, it's the mind. And so, like I said, the breath has been something that has been, instrumental in my life now. And again, I'm not perfect. I don't do it every single day. I've realized actually that during my career, before I started working on any mental, or sports psychology or anything like that, I kind of put myself in a cage. I had like a pregame routine. If I had 7 things that I needed to do before every single game, if I didn't do one of them and then I had a poor performance on the ice, I would blame it on that one thing I didn't do, opposed to, heck, it was just my night to make a mistake or have a bad game, whatever. So now I'm out of the game and I've got these morning routines. And if I don't do all of them and my kids wake up and I'm a little bit more on edge, well, I blame it on the one thing that I didn't do. And so I've kind of put myself into a cage. So I'm really trying to make sure that I relax and give myself space to just feel whatever it is that I need to feel at times. I think all too often we start feeling these icky feelings and we want to push them away. But the more you push them away, you're actually inviting them to stay, and they build more momentum. And they kind of control your psyche. So I'm trying to relax and just be in the moments. And again, you're not going to always feel happy. I'm not always happy, Jake. Sometimes I'm freaking, sad or depressed or whatever. And then I just cry and I allow that energy to pass through me. And every time I cry, I always feel better after. So
I really like what you talked about with not avoiding, but more embracing reality. I think that's a critical element in just life in general, and obviously that feeds into everything you do, which would include hockey, like with this podcast. And I don't have any data; it's just observation. The people that embrace the suck, as they call it in the military, embrace the suck a little bit, and just like, all right, this is going to suck. I really don't want to do my taxes this year, but I need to get it done, or whatever that may be. That's an easy non-hockey related one we can pick on. But it always amazes me when I'm looking at my own players and like trying to get everyone to just embrace what is reality and work from where we are. Like, everyone has the person they want to be and the person they currently are, and there's always going to be that gap there. So if you've ever talked to anyone with any sort of discipline, what do they want? More discipline. So managing that gap in our mental health between it, I think is critical. And the people that I've seen just come to a more embracing, like you said, looking internally, embracing yourself, giving that self-love, are, I don't know. Like I talk to people, and like some of them are just chasing happiness, and the ones that are chasing the happiness seem to be the ones who are the most miserable.
Yeah, because they're chasing it, so it sounds then like they think it's outside themselves. In the next job, in the amount of money, in the next relationship, in the next city. But in truth, if that's how you're living your life, you're going to be forever chasing, because again, everything stems from within. Your happiness comes from you and the perspective you have about where you're currently at and where you want to go. Again, it could always be worse. I struggle at times with trying to get people to compare their life to somebody in a third world country or in a war-torn country. But I believe through that, you invalidate your own experience. You know what I mean? So everybody's in a constant state of, somebody comes to me and says that they went through something that I did as a child. Oh, well, I was sexually abused. What I went through was worse. No, it wasn't. It carried the weight that it did for me. And your experience carried the weight that it did for you. I'm not going to sit here and get lost and mine was better. Mine was worse. No, yours was yours and mine was mine. And I'm doing the very best that I can to move on from mine and make peace with mine, but yeah, I think back to my career and spending the amount of time that I did over in Europe and how happy I was for the most part, and people coming up to me and asking me like, Jake, or Jacob, whatever, how are you so happy? Like, you're away from your kids. Why aren't you sad? And I remember saying on several different occasions, I said, well, guys, I am sad at times, but I honor that sadness. I sit with it. I give it space. What good does it do for me to carry it around with me everywhere I go, and therefore affect the people that I'm around and then affect my on ice performance? So when I feel that sadness, I just feel it. I allow it to be. And it typically lasts 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes before the new thoughts start coming, right? Whether I cry or I don't. Again, the mind is going to continue to produce the thoughts. And eventually I can attach myself to one of the happy ones, which is going to, again, lead to that different happy feeling as well.
That's yes. I love that in so many different levels. And the guy who opened my mind to it was Kobe Bryant, when he talked about like just watching and observing your emotions. Because like, for example, I was not exactly the happiest kid. Like I had a lot of anger and I was like really struggling with controlling that. And it wasn't until I was able to be like, yeah, I don't want to be angry anymore. It's like one day I remember just having an observation, like, I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah.
This sucks. And like
Yeah.
just like starting to be able to observe like your own emotions. I feel like that's kind of the gateway to not like striving. Like I hate people who think of like happiness. You just need to be happy all the time. It's like this perfect dose of always good. I'm like, that's unrealistic. Like
Right.
it's almost like self-enjoyment. That's the way I call it. I'm like,
Mm.
as long as you're enjoying yourself, like there's always going to be, 10% of the life that you're like, I don't want to do this. This is terrible. But like finding that despicable me, vector, right direction with magnitude, like as long as we're going in the right direction, like that should maybe more drive our happiness than what our current circumstances are.
Yeah.
I'm curious to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I would say acceptance, just accepting where you're at in any given moment. And as we know, we have the ebbs, we have the flows. Life is ever changing. We're going to be high, and we know that eventually that is going to wear out, and we're going to come back to neutral, and then we're going to dip down low, and we're going to feel more sad or angry or whatever. But just like the good times come to an end, well, that's going to come to an end. You're going to get back to that neutral state. But for as long as you sit there and, self-sabotage yourself and hate yourself when you're feeling low, well, the chances are that that's going to last longer. And it's going to take another day or 2 days or a week before you get back to that happier state. We're not naturally at our core, we're all loving beings. We're all happy. We've just had experiences through our lives that have kind of hardened us, hardened us and made us a little bit cold to the outside world. And I think the more you can love yourself and be happy within, you realize how much outside of yourself is there to love you. If you're not loving yourself, you can't see the love that people around you have for you, mom, dad, brother, sister, wife, husband, whoever it is. And that's one thing that I've really realized, that the more I'm able to be happy with myself and love myself, I can see my mom's love for me in a clearer light. But if I'm feeling angry, I don't feel so much love coming from my mother or coming from my brothers and my sisters and my kids, even for that matter, and so it's just an understanding that it's a daily practice, no different than any other skill. If you want to be good at technology, or if you want to be good at doing taxes, or whatever the case is, there's so many different areas in life that people do, in terms of a job, but they weren't, they started day one, they practiced one day and they became experts. It's not like that. This type of stuff, the self-love, the self-care routines that you can start to acquire, it takes practice, and every day it's not going to be glorious. Every day it's not going to lead to that high loving feeling. But if you stay consistent with it, more often than not, you are going to come out of it feeling better, or again, at least neutral. So that's something that I've learned, that I can do all the meditations, I can do all the breath works, and some days it's still not going to lead me into that high state of love, and that's okay too. So
I really enjoy that. Like the idea of self-love or like self-care. It's like some people talk about self-care and then they go scroll TikTok.
Yeah.
Maybe not the best. But like the idea of just accepting, like, I'm okay. It's okay not to be okay, or wherever I'm at. I really enjoyed that. And the piece that really stuck with me, what you just said, was about like not allowing yourself to become hardened off. Like, say someone screws you out of $50 for a taxi ride, however it happened. Be like, that's okay. Like you would rather give yourself space to be taken advantage of in like a case like that, where it's just $50. Like, yeah, it means a lot, but it's only $50, rather than hardening yourself off and now you're becoming negative. You're not having good quality relationships. Like, I feel like that's another piece. It's like you're probably going to get screwed at some point in your life on something. It may be minor, maybe major, but should you now becoming like taking processes to not have this happen again? Or is it okay to kind of leave that little bit of slack to allow yourself to be more open to this love of yourself, love of others, being able to receive that? Because I feel like a lot of young people sometimes can struggle with being able to receive compliments and receive that love as well. I know that's something I see with my players. It's like they don't know how to handle it, because like a lot of times, parents can be hard on you, you can be hard on yourself. So it's kind of weird when someone's like, nice job. And they're like, oh, thank you.
Yeah, it
So,
kind of catches them off guard. Yeah, I get that.
yeah, it's actually fascinating. Which actually I love this kind of conversation. Is there any other areas? I mean, because I also like there's so many pieces. Like this too shall pass. Like that's like my all-time great line that I love to use from the investing world. Because when the market goes down, everyone wants to sell, and it's like this too shall pass.
Yeah.
There's always going to be something to worry about. Like I promise you.
Right.
If it wasn't Ukraine, it was the oil embargo. Before that, it was the financial crisis. Like those are just the big ones. Trust me, there's a ton every single year. And this too shall pass.
Right. Yeah, it's again, like I said, you're going to feel high, you're going to feel low, you're going to feel in the middle. But the more you cling to the low feelings, again, the longer they're going to last. And everything's connected. I think about the players on the ice that I'm working with, with Russ, your buddy Russ, and with the players that I'm helping around the world in terms of the mental performance. Like what takes place away from the rink has a significant impact on your performance on the ice. The relationship you have with your parents, the relationship we have with your brothers and sisters, what took place at school, your friends, society, the current state of the world, like everything is connected. So for us to think that we're just going to always show up and have that optimal performance, it's just, I think we're setting ourselves up for failure, but the more you can start focusing on the foods that you're consuming, the sleep quality you get, what you're consuming when you're looking at your phone, social media can be an incredible place, but it can always also be a very toxic place as well. And so many people get lost in that state of comparison of, oh, this person's there or this person's doing that. But man, just if you can just accept where you're at, it's going to make your experience a lot more joyful than if you're just sitting there in a constant state of comparison. And I know for myself growing up, I didn't have a lot of money, playing in San Diego and playing in Los Angeles, and me showing up in my Honda Civic when my teammates were showing up in their Escalades and their Jaguars and their Maseratis. And I'm just thinking like, well, why can't I have that? And then through that, I started to feel sadness going into the rink. And then how did I perform? I didn't perform up to my optimal level, my full potential, So I think, again, like I said, sometimes I just start blabbing off and I go here and I go there. So I don't even know.
That's great. Like it's the same thing with our emotions, right? Like you got to follow them and see where they go. Same with our thoughts, see where they go. And then you can attach to one if that's what you want to do, because ultimately our actions are what and how others perceive us. Even though our intentions may be great, if we're doing terrible things, people probably think of us as terrible. Maybe, like there's that disconnect that sometimes you have between yourself and the actual self that you project into the world.
Yeah.
So I think that's absolutely fascinating. What you just talked about, I think it is cool. Thinking about like the process, like how do you go about getting the results? Because as we all know, sometimes life is 2 steps forward, 1 step back, and you take that 1 step back and now you start doubting yourself. But can we get to a place where our process is good? That's like the idea behind expected goals in the stats community. It's like, are we expected to get goals? Then there will be the reversion to the mean where things work out. Like statistically, we're just continually trying to put things in our advantage. And I feel like it's the same thing with life.
Yeah, for sure. And if you're never taking the time to kind of sit there and be proud of the work that you've done, like you're always then striving or looking for the next thing, never honoring all the work that you have done. And I talk a lot about this with players. Like every single NHL team, when you start the season, they all want to win the Stanley Cup. If the Stanley Cup championship or the finals was the very next day and they won it, not much has changed from day 1 to day 2, but they have an 82 game long season, 7 months, 8 months. Who they became as individuals and who they became as a team is significantly different from day 1 to day 279, but again, if they obtained your goal the very next day, not much has really changed within you. And who you become along the process, the highs, the lows, the block shots, the sadness, you can kind of really connect the on ice stuff to the life stuff, So yeah, so again, expecting you to go, start your self-care, your self-love routine on day one, whether it's one tool or 5 tools, and expecting you to feel good every single day along the way just because you did those things. Again, your expectations are so high, right? Your confidence in those routines are very high, but the higher you keep that expectation that I'm going to feel good every single day, well, then the confidence within the process, within the work, within the routine also lowers. And before you know it, you're back to doing nothing again and allowing life to use you and abuse you, So again, you can't go from having no routine to having 5, 6, 7, 8 different tools and thinking that that's going to be sustainable. You need to start with just one. It's no different, if anybody's trying to, stop drinking or stop using something. If you think that you're just going to go cold turkey and that's going to be sustainable, again, you're setting yourself up for failure. Eating fast food, you can't go from eating McDonald's every single day to never eating McDonald's again. It's just not going to work. There's a part within you that needs the McDonald's. There's an unhealed part within you that needs the alcohol or that needs the something. So we need to start navigating that so that we can not always be performing for the mind. The mind tells me I need a drink, boom, I go and get a drink. Or I just sit with that thought for 5 minutes, 6 minutes. Eventually it subsides, it goes away. And now I can do something healthier. I can go to the gym. I can go for a walk. We can take it so many different ways. I think in all the years that I've been doing, the work, I haven't really escaped. I haven't been able to, the negative thoughts still come, right? But I'm not in a constant state of performing for the mind. I don't need to go to the store anymore to get the 6-pack or smoke the weed or do the chewing tobacco that I've done in the past, and so you're never really going to be able to escape the mind because it's always going to be there. But the relationship you have with the thoughts and understanding that they're ever changing, they're coming, they're going, they're high, they're low, they're neutral. And if you can just give yourself the space to just kind of sit and not get up and not constantly be performing, then again, I think you're going to lead a lot healthier life and make a lot healthier choices.
Yes. And I find this true in my own life, a matter of what I call like goals versus themes. Like I want to always have a personal theme of something I want to work on rather than a goal, because I feel like a goal is this long pie in the sky thing. And there's all these micro decisions that occur to get to that goal. Like I'm more worried about those little micro decisions, like you're talking about, giving you those 5 minutes. And if you have that theme, like, oh, I'm a healthy eater. So every time you come to that crossroad of do I do McDonald's or not versus the goal of I want to lose 5 pounds or I want to, put on 5 pounds of muscle, whatever it may be. Like for me, I've always found like themes have been super powerful. Like that's a tool that I have. And then to go along with that is the idea of like, how do you shape your environment? Right. Because that's such a big driver, like if you want to see someone's outcomes or a projected outcome, just look at the incentives that the system they are in provides, right? So like, how do you shape the environment? Like for me, like I love picking on myself. Like I absolutely love ice cream. Okay. If it's in the house, I'm going to eat it. But if I do not buy the ice cream at the store, I really need to make an effort when my mind goes late at night, like, I go for some ice cream right now. Like, I actually have to get in the car, go get the ice cream. Like, so like just those little tools, like you talk about, like, how you shape your environment, control these emotions, and how do you deal with them? It's just absolutely fascinating. There's so many ways to go about it. So like, I know for my personal self, I do a lot of themes. I mean, I wrote it on the newsletter, Themes First Goals, and why I think it's so powerful and how we shape our environments. It's just absolutely critical.
And I think it's good if you can have those goals, those long-term goals, whether it be a year from now or 3 years, 5 years, have that, kind of always in the back of your mind. That's like your inspiration for doing the things that you do. But we need something more short-term that's going to stay and keep you motivated to keep you on the path of reaching that goal. And so one thing I talk a lot about is like purpose over pleasure. If you can keep that goal in mind, is the next decision I'm about to make going to move me towards my purpose, or is it taking me towards pleasure? Yes, you love ice cream, but we know the more ice cream you eat, the more, unhealthy you're going to become. So purpose over pleasure, is the decision I'm making in this moment going to help me to become the person I want to be now and then into the future? And typically with that mind frame, the decision is a lot easier. It's a lot more straightforward. No, you're not going to eat the ice cream. Yes, we need to give ourselves the space to eat it, but that should be when we're going out to get it. I love that, because I know for myself, I choose to not have any junk food in my house, because the same thing. I know if it's here, it's like I always know it's here, and so those thoughts are going to come a lot more, like, oh, it's right there. It's a 5-foot walk. I can grab that chocolate and put it in my
those potato chips, yeah.
And thankfully nowadays they're making stuff where potato chips where there's only 3 ingredients in it or 2 ingredients in it, and so that it's not so much anymore a guilty pleasure. If it's olive oil and just potatoes, well, in my mind, that's good for you. So maybe that's justification for doing what I do. But no, yeah. So, again, purpose over pleasure. Have the goal in mind. And is every decision I'm making, is that leading me closer to my goals or taking me farther away from them?
Absolutely. And to go back, you mentioned a book, The Untethered Soul. I'm a big fan of The Inner Game of Tennis is kind of a book. I mean, it's more coaching, but I feel like it talks more about on the mental game of how do we go about ourselves, improvement, heading in the right direction, maybe just letting things happen. I'm curious, what was it with The Untethered Soul that really stuck out to you and really drew you in, and why it was so valuable to you, and some things that you've kept to you to this day?
Yeah, I would think, one of the exercises that it asks you to do in the book is take the never-ending thoughts and put them into another person's body. And that's like your best friend, your inner roommate, and put those thoughts into another person, but that person's speaking it to you. Wherever you go, here's that person coming along right with you. Is that a person you're really going to want to associate with? Is that a person you're going to want in your life? And most of the time, unfortunately, the way the thoughts work is we don't want to associate with that person, So that was one thing that it helped me to just start becoming a lot more aware of the thoughts that were taking place and how negative they can be, unfortunately, and how sabotaging. You make one mistake and it's all of a sudden like you're a bad person. I know for so many hockey players is who they are as a hockey player, they think that's who they are as a person. So if they had a bad game, they think they're a bad person, and it's just not the case whatsoever, So through that book, it's incredible. Every single chapter, it's like it just touched me so deeply. It was so true, and it was so applicable to life, and how, instead of healing myself from within or, trying to, just become healthier, it's like, one of the chapters talks about like having a thorn in the side of your arm. Instead of just taking that thorn out, we build a force field, or we build a fort around the thorn, right? We rearrange people, rearrange situations to not hit the thorn, opposed to just taking the thing out and living a lot more free life. If you can understand that analogy there, so many people will fricking build this thing and build it and build it and build it. And before you know, you can't go here, you can't go there, you can't have this conversation, you can't be around this group of people. And are you really living? I don't think you're more existing at that point. You're not really living life. So I talk a lot.
No, this is fantastic, and I love that analogy of the thorn. I think that's absolutely fantastic. I mean, that's going to stick with me after this episode of like how many people do that in their real life. I mean, there are situations maybe at work that you kind of do maybe have to avoid or work around given whatever situation, but for the most part, like how many times do we do that when you can just pull it out, deal with the situation, which may be painful in the short term. You maybe got a little blood from the thorn coming out, but it's going to heal and get better. And that's what you ultimately need to do. It's like, when I talk to people about LASIK or, eye surgery, they're like, everyone who's gotten it's like, should have done it sooner. Everyone who thinking about it is like, just a little bit longer and I'll do it. And it's kind of like that idea of like, all right, well, maybe you should just get it done.
Yeah.
Get it done now. And start to live freer, enjoy it. You don't have to worry about contacts, whatever. I try to, use the PG versions here, but apply everyone to your own lives. But these are just kind of like key thoughts about like, how do we go about it? Because at the end of the day, like you said, everything's mental. It's why I started the Hockey IQ podcast in the first place. Maybe not so much around mental strength and living, but everything's connected here. The freer your mind is, the more creative you can be on the ice, the freer you're going to play without fear of mistakes. And if you're worried about screwing up, you probably screw up more. So it's the same thing on the ice. If you're worried about that, you're probably going to make that mistake or that turnover or whatever it may be.
Yeah, and I know for, again, going back to my career and now with the players that I work with, again, after you make a mistake, you're on the bench, you're sitting on the bench, what are you thinking about? If you're sitting there thinking about the mistake only, you're so focused on the mistake, well, we're now just producing more of the same. We're producing more of the mistakes. So typically when a player makes a mistake, they know what they could have done or should have done differently. So the moment you can start just tapping into that, well, the chances are it's going to lead you into actually doing differently on the ice, and I talk a lot about, visualization, trying to visualize that future experience that you're going to find yourself in, especially the more you've played the game. You've got 3 years, 4 years, 5. You can look back on past experiences, whether that be on the power play or the penalty kill or on the breakout or in a one-on-one battle in the corner. Visualize yourself at succeeding at those things at the highest level. And now when that future experience comes, your body doesn't really know the difference. It's a lot more comfortable being in that situation, and I've read a book called Becoming Supernatural by Dr. Joe Dispenza. And he talks a lot about how the body doesn't know the difference between an actual event that's taking place in front of your eyes or an event that you create from your mind and from your thoughts alone. So I talk a lot about to my players about exactly that. We know what we're going to face in the future. Let's visualize it. Let's do it now in our minds. So that way, when we get there, it's not as foreign. We feel a lot more comfortable and therefore a lot more confident in that situation. So yeah.
Love it. This conversation has been absolutely fascinating. I'm glad we're going to put this out here into the world for more people to enjoy it. Hopefully take a few things away from it, whether it be for themselves or to help others. Because people helping people, it is powerful stuff, as the great movie Wedding Crashers told us.
Exactly. What a great movie.
Yep. So you have this beautiful sign behind you, and I know no one's going to be able to see it, but it says, "Yes, I can," with 3 exclamation marks. So maybe go into that just ever so slightly. We can keep it quick, and then I'll give you the floor for 2 minutes to talk about anything you want, how people can find you. If there's anything on your mind that you want to get out there, please do so.
Yes, I can. It's nice, to wake up and there's other things on the side that you can't see because it's written pretty small, but it's just a reminder that no matter what it is that I'm trying to do that I think I can't do, I can do it. If it's been done before me, that means it's possible. That means I can do it. So you can gain inspiration from the people before me that have gone along the path and along the journey and have healed themselves or have been able to work with NHL players in terms of their mental performance, because the more I do it, the better and more confident I feel at it. I feel almost as if like I'm an expert at it, And so I have that vision of myself working with NHL players, working with AHL players and, high level players around the world. And so, yeah, yes, I can, or no, I can't. Either way, whichever story you tell yourself, it's always true one of two ways, And so anytime I'm out on the ice with the kids, high level kids or low level kids, we get them together at the very end and I have them chant 2 things. One is, yes, I can. And the other one is, I believe in myself. Because if you're not believing in yourself, then really who is, and if you believe you can't, well, you can't. But if you believe you can, your effort level is going to match in line with that as well.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Jacob, for coming on. Really, really appreciate it. Yes. Make sure to send me over your contact information that I can put in the show notes for everyone. And if anyone wants to get in contact with you, they can do so, because I really believe in the message you're putting out there. And you're not just speaking it, you're still working on it yourself and continuing through this. I can provide people the tools to help live the best lives they possibly can. And that is ultimately what we're all here to do.
Yes, sir. And you said you'd give me 2 minutes, so I guess I'll blast off here really quick. I feel as though every situation or every person you come in contact with, they're just messengers. So if a situation upsets you or if a person upsets you, understanding that is your experience. They're not feeling what you're feeling. So if you're sitting there blasting off on them or attacking them, well, again, it's your internal experience. You and I could be standing right next to each other, right? A person could say something, it could affect me, it could not affect you. Whose problem is it? It's my problem. And it's up to me to start working on that inner energy shift so that I can better see reality for what it is, opposed to for what my mind is telling me about reality. So yeah, and also I think a lot of players suffer from the fear around what other people feel about them, other people's opinions, and what other people feel about you has nothing to do with you. For example, a coach doesn't sleep so good one night. He wakes up, he's a little bit more on edge. He's screaming a lot more at practice. Is it because the players are making more mistakes, or is it simply because the coach didn't sleep well and he's feeling crabbly? So he's projecting outward what he's feeling inward, So if we can have that kind of perspective, I think it's going to help players and people around the world as well.
Awesome. Well, good luck. Hopefully we see you on ESPN's networks here shortly. Thanks again for coming on. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me, brother. Truly grateful. Thank you.
Take care.
That concludes this week's episode. Thanks for joining us here at Hockey IQ. If you haven't already, take a quick moment to hit that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, and drop a review. If you want to be a great teammate, even recommend us to a friend. You can follow us at Hockey's Arsenal on Twitter and Instagram. Check out the website, hockeysarsenal.com, where you can subscribe to the weekly newsletter. You won't regret it. Catch your buttes here next week for a brand new episode.